So I'm going to talk about the Kyle Wittenhouse shootings. And I really don't think that this should be as much of a partisan issue as it is. I really think that people should be able to take a more objective look at what occurred instead of falling for the propaganda of either side in this case. But this case in particular is really showcasing people's confirmation biases, and it is really, really showcasing the way that our media spins things in the first place to create these divisive issues. So like I care about truth. I care about justice and truth, and trying to be as objective as possible in observing what happened. So I'll run through what happened. The first shooting, he was running away from this guy who was chasing him down, and he waited until he was cornered in the very last moment to defend himself and to kill the person who was chasing him and preparing to assault him. and it looked like he fired even a warning shot when the guy was like within 8 feet of him, like, hey, don't come at me, I have a weapon. And he waited until the very last moment that this guy was gonna tackle him to defend himself, and afterwards he objectively tried to stick around and call an ambulance, but was chased away. So like I feel like his character is kind of apparent. Like he was clearly trying to de-escalate the situation by fleeing. Like people are spinning this like, oh, he didn't go there, he went there to hunt people because he brought a weapon and stuff. But like, if you're going there, if you're trying to hunt people with your assault rifle, you don't run away from them and try to de-escalate the situation when they're chasing you. If you're going there to kill people, then like you just stand. You have an assault rifle. You just stand there and you say, all right, come at me. Fucking give me an excuse to shoot you. Come at me right now. I dare you. And you don't say, hey, you don't run away and like try to de-escalate the situation, fire a warning shot when they're like 8 feet from you, and wait until they're about to tackle you to defend yourself. Like if you're actually like hunting people, then you stand in the middle of wherever and you're just like, I dare you to come at me. Give me an excuse. And that's clearly not what happened. Like people are spinning this like, oh, he crossed state borders. Okay, he crossed state borders. It was 30 minutes away. It was 30 minutes away. As far as I'm concerned, that's your city. Like the state border is an arbitrary line, so people are just using that as like an excuse to be like, oh, he wanted to hunt people. Like, okay, there's these protests happening. If there was a protest happening 30 minutes from me, I would be really interested in it. This is a really interesting energy that's happening in the world right now. To see all of these like if there were violent protests happening, I would want to go there I would want to protect people. I would want to like see what was going on to see if like to make sure that nothing bad happened to people. And that's not like that unreasonable thing. People can't comprehend that like you might want to check out protests to like help protect people. And they're like, no, he was only protecting businesses or whatever. Like whatever. Like you can't get all the way into that, but. And the nature of wanting to be safe while you're checking these things out too is like pretty logical. Like, okay, if you're going somewhere where you know there might be violence, there might be like kind of turn into a war zone, people might attack you, wanting to protect yourself, wanting to have a weapon to protect yourself is completely logical. It's completely like not that ridiculous at all. And people are saying like, oh, you don't bring a weapon unless you're planning to kill people. No, that's insane. Like you're just inferring a motivation. You're spinning and inferring a motivation, which contradicts like the sequence of events that happened, the motivation of the sequence of events that happened. If you watch what he did, how he behaved, you see that he was trying to de-escalate the situation. He was trying not to hurt the person who was chasing him down. And I see like people spin this so desperately. They're like, oh, well, he wouldn't have even been being chased down if he wasn't causing some sort of trouble. Like, that's how desperate people are to like spin this into some other situation. It's like, it's just absurd to me. And like they spin it like, oh, well, it wasn't self-defense because like if somebody's gonna tackle you with your loaded weapon, then like there's no way to see it as anything other than self-defense. Like you're supposed to just not protect yourself and let the guy take your loaded weapon from you and see what happens. Like that's like the argument that people are kind of inferring when they say that he wasn't defending himself in that situation. Like he was absolutely defending himself in that situation, and he tried to stick around to call an ambulance. Then that like really shows his character, honestly. And then he tried to flee, and then the other two shootings, like like I bet he regrets the second one more than anything, because that one was kind of like that guy hit him with a skateboard and then kind of like tried to run off, and he kind of like had a hold of his gun, and it was like a real heat of the moment situation, and he fired, and but well, yeah, that was also obviously self-defense. Like he literally got assaulted, but I don't know, like he literally got assaulted, so that was obviously self-defense. And the third guy, he like, the fact that he had the composure, that this kid had the composure when he was on the ground, he just got assaulted by somebody hit in the head, and he saw this third guy rushing at him, has a gun in his hand, and this kid had the composure on the ground to look up at the guy, and like the guy stopped rushing when he heard the gunshot, and the kid didn't fire on him. The kid was like, okay, you stopped rushing me, you're not a threat, like don't make me hurt you, basically. But then the guy rushed him again. But the guy, like after the guy stopped, he was just like, no, actually, now I am gonna rush you again. So, and the kid had the reaction time to then only shoot him in the arm, in spite of the fact that he was holding a weapon. So that's pretty good composure. Like and that's also totally self-defense. Like he's being assaulted. Somebody has the potential to take your weapon from you and kill you, and like there's no way to look at those things as at any of those situations as not self-defense. If somebody corners you into a corner, like chasing you down, and they're gonna like take your loaded weapon from you, like you have to defend yourself, kind of. And the argument that when people are spinning this to try to make this like not self-defense, or try to spin it in some other way, they always, I've seen a lot of people just tangent off into some other topic. They refuse to say like, okay, well, yeah, if somebody's gonna take your loaded weapon from you, you kind of have to protect yourself. They try to say like, oh, well, he shouldn't have been there in the first place. You know, he shouldn't have had the weapon. He was only 17, and like, and this thing of like, and like I mentioned earlier, the argument that, oh, he shouldn't have had it. He shouldn't have been there in the first place. What was he doing going there? It's like, okay, you know. It's like I said, it's not that unreasonable to be curious about all of these protests that are happening nearby, and like 30 minutes away, oh, it was across state lines, that's basically still within your city. And like I would be interested in doing a similar thing. If there was a protest like that happening 30 minutes from me, I would probably want to go check it out, and I'd probably want to protect myself. I'd probably want to be very safe doing that and be able to protect other people in case bad things were happening. That's like not totally unreasonable. and the only other argument is like, oh, he was 17, so it was illegal for him to have a gun. Okay, that is true. It was illegal for him to be carrying a weapon, but that's also kind of like an arbitrary point, because it doesn't actually change the situation that was occurring. It doesn't actually change his behaviors or his actions in that situation. It doesn't. And if he'd been a couple months older, it would have been legal. So it's like, and he would have been the same person. It's just kind of, so it's a little bit of an arbitrary argument. It's like, and it's just to fit the spin more than anything. But yeah, like the age doesn't actually change the situation that was occurring, which was him being chased into a corner, and definitely trying to de-escalate the situation by fleeing, by not provoking these people. And these spins just don't make sense. Like if you're saying all these spins are like, oh, he went to hunt people, he was trying to hunt people. Like I said, if you want to hunt people and you have an assault rifle, then you just like dare them to come at you, and then when they come at you, you're like, ah, yay, self-defense. And that's not what was happening. He was not intending to harm these people. They kind of, like, they were threatening his life. And it's a tragic situation, don't get me wrong. Like it sucks that all of that happened, but I think that people are really spinning this unreasonably. Like people are trying so desperately to like spin this, and it's just showcasing the kind of spinning of narratives that has been happening for a really long time in this country, because people are just refusing to observe that like he was protecting his own life. And like, okay, he was 17, he should have been 18 to protect your own life. Okay, well, that doesn't change the situation of what was occurring. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. It just bothers me that people are so easily manipulated by these narratives that are trying to make this like more of a partisan issue, and it's because like, oh, he likes Trump, therefore he has to be the bad guy. That's what has been kind of shown, and it's absurd. Like, I'm not trying to look at this in a partisan way. I'm just trying to look at it objectively, what was occurring, and I feel like that's what everybody should be doing. Everybody should be trying to look objectively at what occurred and recognize, okay, he was cornered. Like it's not self-defense. Like, I just can't fathom this. The mentality of not seeing that as self-defense. It's like, it's just really absurd. Like, because like the only argument is just like, oh, well, if you're not supposed to protect yourself from somebody who has you cornered, has chased you into a corner, is gonna assault you, then like you're supposed to just let them take your loaded weapon, like I mentioned earlier, and just do something with it. Like, oh, they just wanted to disarm him because they were scared of him. Oh, the poor protesters. Like, so you're saying that you're saying if you have a weapon, you should just let people take your weapon from you, let people you don't know take it from you, if otherwise you're the bad guy. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Anyways, I really hope that there is some mercy in this regard, because he was forced into a really bad situation, and like, sure, he shouldn't have had an assault weapon because he has a couple months too young for it, but that should basically be the extent of his punishment, in my opinion, because he wasn't provoking these people, unless you have evidence to show the case that he was like provoking them. But all of the evidence was like he was running away, trying not to provoke them. He waited until the absolute last minute. It looked like he fired a warning shot to try to get the guy to back off, and afterwards he wanted to call the police or the ambulance to get somebody there to help him, but he was kind of forced away because people were going to assault him again. Like, his character is kind of apparent from what literally occurred, and people trying to spin this into something else. People trying to spin this into, oh, he wanted to hunt people. Like, you can't cross state lines and have an assault rifle go to a protest unless you're trying to hunt people is just absurd. Like I said, like, it's interesting to see these protests. It's logical to want to protect yourself and to protect good people if you're going into basically a war zone. Like, anyways, I'm just going to be kind of repeating myself at this point, because that's kind of like, that's the basic gist of it, and it just baffles me that so many people are caught up in these spins of like twisting it into a partisan issue instead of just looking at what literally occurred. But yeah, that's just the issues that we're dealing with in the world right now, as far as spinning information and turning everything into some massive conflict. So yeah, I really hope that this kid gets a degree of mercy, that his case is understood as self-defense, because like, his hand was kind of forced in that situation. So yeah, that's all I've got for now. That's let me know if you have any thoughts about the case, about what occurred. Like, I will gladly try to come to a more logical understanding of truth of what occurred if people think that there are counterpoints to what I've said. But for the most part, when I point out, like I said, when you point out that like these situations were very, very self-defense, very much so, and that like he had actually pretty good composure to wait until the last minute to try to warn that guy away, the first guy, and he had the composure to only shoot the third guy who brandished a gun on him in the arm instead of hurting him, instead of killing him, is like, that's pretty good composure, and that really shows his character, I think. But yeah, if people have real counterpoints that aren't just like these hysterical spins that are being thrown at the narrative of the situation, then I would love to see the counterpoints to how it wasn't self-defense or whatever else. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and smash that like and subscribe button and all that.